Chapter 71. By mid-1884, Matthew Hesch's visit to Fitzwilliam Bank marked a new milestone in his journey. As he reviewed the account statements prepared by the bank's managers, he felt a sense of awe at how far Hesch Motors had come. His personal net worth had surged past 25 million florins, making him one of the wealthiest men of the era. Yet, for Matthew, the fortune was not just a symbol of success but a means to push innovation further. Amber accompanied him to the bank, her usual poise tempered with curiosity. "That's quite a number, Matthew," she said, glancing at the final balance. Matthew leaned back in the leather chair, smiling faintly. "It's not just about the money, Amber, it's about what we can do with it. We've revolutionized land transportation. But there's still more ground our air to cover." "Air?" Amber raised an eyebrow. "I don't understand. What are you talking about?" "Well, Amber, I am going to ask you a question. Is it possible for us humans to conquer the skies?" Matthew said. Amber tilted her head, considering his words. "You're talking about powered flight, aren't you? Like those experimental gliders and balloons we've read about in the papers." "Exactly," Matthew said, nodding, "but I'm not just talking about experiments or novelties. I'm talking about practical, reliable machines that can transport goods and people across vast distances. Imagine the possibility: faster deliveries, global trade networks, even connecting nations in ways we can't fully comprehend yet." Amber's skepticism faded as she saw the determination in Matthew's expression. "It's ambitious," she admitted, "but if anyone can make it happen, it's you. After all, you are the genius of the century." Matthew smiled, his confidence bolstered by her faith. "Thank you, Amber. The era of land transportation is thriving, but the skies are still unclaimed, and with the resources we now have, we're in a position to lead this new frontier." Matthew knew at a certain point he would get to introduce aircraft in this world, and this was the best time for him to do that, as his automobile enterprises are generating him enough profit to start another venture in his previous world. The Wright brothers made history in 1903 with the first powered flight, but the foundations of their success, understanding lift, thrust, and propulsion, were laid decades earlier by pioneers like George Cayley and Otto Lilienthal. If they could do it with limited resources, he can do it here with what I know. Matthew stood in his workshop, surrounded by engineers from his growing company. A large blackboard dominated one wall, already covered in sketches of wings, engines, and propellers. On a table lay wooden models of early airplane concepts, which Matthew had carved himself as visual aids. "Gentlemen," Matthew began, addressing the group, "we are standing at the edge of a new era. In the same way Hesch Motors revolutionized transportation on the ground, we're now going to conquer the skies, but before we begin building, we need to understand the principles of flight." He turned to the blackboard and began drawing a simple diagram of an airplane in motion. "For an aircraft to fly, we need to address 4 key forces: lift, thrust, drag, and weight. Your adventure continues at Novelbin. Matthew pointed to the upward arrow on his diagram. "Lift is what keeps the aircraft in the air. It's generated by the shape of the wings, which we call airfoils. An airfoil has a curved top and a flat bottom. As air flows over the wing, it moves faster over the curved surface, creating lower pressure above the wing and higher pressure below. This pressure difference lifts the plane." He moved to the forward arrow. "Thrust is what moves the aircraft forward. It will come from our engine powering a propeller. The propeller blades act like spinning wings, generating thrust by pushing air backward." Matthew circled the backward arrow. "Drag is the resistance the plane experiences as it moves through the air. The goal is to reduce drag while maintaining the structural integrity of the aircraft." Finally, he pointed to the downward arrow. "Weight is the force of gravity pulling the plane down. To achieve flight, our lift must overcome the aircraft's weight." Matthew walked over to the wooden models and pointed out the key parts of an airplane. "This is the main body of the aircraft. It is called a fuselage. It houses the cockpit, passengers, and cargo. For our initial design, we'll use a lightweight wooden frame reinforced with steel joints for strength. The wings are the most critical part. Their airfoil shape generates lift. We'll build them from a wooden frame covered with treated fabric, similar to gliders but reinforced for powered flight." Matthew held up a small prototype of a propeller. "The engine will power the propeller, which generates thrust. We are going to use a different kind of engine, unlike automobile engines, which use an inline or V-shaped arrangement for their cylinders. A radial engine places its cylinders in a circular pattern around a central crankshaft." One of the younger engineers raised a hand. "Why a radial engine, Mr. Hesch? What makes it better for aircraft?" Matthew smiled, appreciating the curiosity. "Good question. Let me explain. A radial engine is ideal for aircraft because of its compact design, which reduces weight and distributes it evenly around the crankshaft. This balance minimizes vibrations. which is crucial for maintaining stability in flight. He pointed to his diagram. Each cylinder fires in a sequence, creating consistent power. The design allows for excellent cooling as the airflow from the moving aircraft naturally cools the exposed cylinders. This means we don't have to rely on complex and heavy cooling systems like water-cooled engines. Now for the components. Matthew turned back to the room holding up a piece of lightweight metal alloy. Aircraft engines require materials that are both strong and light. For the crankshaft and rods, we'll use steel alloys for durability. For the cylinders, aluminum will be our material of choice. It's light, conducts heat well, and is easier to machine than steel. He tapped the table for emphasis. The propeller will be carved from laminated wood. For now, it's lighter and easier to work with than metal, but it's still strong enough to handle the forces of flight. Rober, who had been quietly taking notes, raised his voice. How do you plan to test such an engine? We've never built anything like it before. Well, construct a stationary test stand first. The engine will be mounted and run for hours to identify any issues with heat, vibration, or power output. Once we're confident in its performance, we'll install it in a prototype aircraft. What about fuel efficiency? Aircraft can't carry large amounts of fuel without adding significant weight. Good point, Matthew said, nodding. We'll design the engine to operate at a consistent, moderate power level to optimize fuel consumption. The carburetor settings will also be fine-tuned for efficiency during cruising speeds, which will be the majority of the aircraft's operation. Any other questions? No one raised their hands. Good, let's get started. Chapter 72. By December 1884, the vast fields surrounding the Hesh factory in Sylvania were transformed into a makeshift airfield. A single-seater aircraft stood at the center of the cleared land, its polished metal and wood frame reflecting the pale winter sun. The single-engine aircraft featured a radial engine mounted at the nose, its cylindrical design compact yet powerful. The wings, crafted from a sturdy wooden frame covered with treated fabric, stretched gracefully on either side. A simple yet functional cockpit with a windshield and control stick awaited the pilot, and the propeller, made of laminated wood, stood poised to spin into action. Matthew stood near the aircraft wearing a leather aviator's jacket lined with fur to protect against the cold. Beside him, Amber and his team of engineers huddled around a portable workbench, finalizing their last checks on the flyer. Lionel, the head engineer, meticulously examined the engine while another engineer checked the tension of the control wires that ran through the wings. Amber looked at the aircraft with scrutiny. It's hard to believe this will take off, she said, pulling her scarf tighter against the wind. Are you sure it's ready? Matthew smiled, his eyes never leaving the flyer. It's ready. We've tested the engine on the stand, run simulations on the wing design, and double-checked every connection. Now, it's time to see if all that work pays off. One of the younger engineers stepped forward. Mr. Hesh, the final checks are complete. Everything is in working order. Matthew nodded and turned to Amber. You'll want to step back a bit. This is going to be loud. And get the cameras ready. I want this taken on camera. This moment will be in history books someday. Robert gave a quick thumbs up, adjusting the lens to frame the aircraft and Matthew, who was already climbing into the cockpit. Matthew settled into the seat. Gripping the control stick, the leather padding of the cockpit provided minimal comfort. But it wasn't luxury he sought, it was functionality. He adjusted his goggles, feeling the weight of the moment. Lionel stepped forward, raising his voice over the growing wind. Engine is primed and ready. Mr. Hesh, remember, keep it low and steady. This is about testing control, not altitude. Matthew smirked, his confidence unshaken. Understood, Lionel. Let's see if we've earned our wings. The ground crew positioned themselves near the propeller, cranking it with coordinated effort. After several rotations, the radial engine sputtered to life. Amber watched nervously as the aircraft trembled slightly, the vibrations coursing through the wooden wheels. It's holding, she muttered. More to reassure herself than anyone else, Matthew gave a thumbs up, signaling he was ready. The crew cleared the area, retreating to a safe distance slowly. He advanced the throttle, the propeller blurred into motion, and the flyer began to roll forward, bumping over the uneven ground. The airfield grew silent. Save for the engine's roar, the flyer picked up speed, its lightweight frame slicing through the cold December air. The wings caught the breeze, and with a slight tug on the control stick, the nose lifted off the ground. A collective gasp swept through the onlookers as the wheels left the earth. The flyer climbed steadily, its silhouette sharp against the clear winter sky. For a moment, no one spoke. their disbelief giving way to awe. "It's flying," Amber whispered, her breath visible in the chilly air. "It's actually flying." Matthew felt the aircraft respond to his movements. The controls were sensitive but manageable, the flyer dipping and banking as he tested its agility. The radial engine thrummed reliably, propelling the machine forward with ease. As he circled the airfield, Matthew couldn't help but grin. This was more than just a test flight, it was proof that his vision could take form, that the skies were no longer out of reach. The flyer's wings glided effortlessly, each maneuver reinforcing the principles he had painstakingly explained to his team. After several minutes, Matthew brought the aircraft lower, preparing for descent. The flyer responded smoothly as he eased off the throttle, the wheels touching down with a slight jolt. Dust and debris kicked up as it rolled to a stop, but the landing was flawless. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices echoing across the field. Amber and Lionel ran toward the aircraft as Matthew climbed out of the cockpit, his face flushed with exhilaration. "You did it," Amber exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "You actually did it." Matthew removed his goggles, his smile uncontainable. "We did it. This was a team effort." Lionel inspected the aircraft, nodding in approval. The structure held perfectly, no signs of stress or damage. Matthew placed a hand on the flyer's fuselage, as though thanking the machine itself. "This is just the beginning. We've proven powered flight is possible now. We refine the design, extend the range, and think bigger." Robert approached with the camera, grinning from ear to ear. "Every moment was captured. The world will see this." Amber laughed. "It's not every day you get to witness history being made." Matthew's expression turned thoughtful as he looked back at the flyer. "This changes everything. Commerce, transportation, communication. This is the start of a new era." Amber placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you're at the center of it, Matthew." As the team began celebrating with handshakes and pats on the back, Matthew stood quietly for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The flyer's success was a triumph, but in his mind, it was only the first step. He envisioned larger aircraft, longer flights, and skies filled with machines that would connect the world in ways no one could yet imagine. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of pride. The dream of flight had become a reality, and he was ready to take it to new heights. Meanwhile, Charles Fitzwilliam, seated in his grand study with a steaming cup of tea in hand, sifted through the day's correspondence. The fireplace crackled softly, filling the room with warmth against the biting December chill outside. He glanced up as the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the hall, the double doors swinging open. A moment later, Amber strode into the room, her cheeks flushed from the cold and excitement. She barely waited for the butler to announce her arrival, her enthusiasm breaking through all decorum. "Dad?" she exclaimed, her voice ringing with urgency and joy. Charles arched a brow, setting his teacup down. "Amber, to what do I owe this rather dramatic entrance? I assume it must be something extraordinary." Amber approached his desk, placing both hands on its polished surface as she leaned forward. "Matthew did it, Charles. He's done something extraordinary again." Chapter 73. By the next morning, Charles Fitzwilliam arrived at the Hesh factory, eager to see the marvel that Amber had described so vividly. His carriage pulled up at the factory gates, where workers were already busy with their morning routines. The air was crisp, and a thin layer of frost clung to the ground. Charles stepped out, his sharp eyes scanning the sprawling complex for any signs of the invention that had captivated his thoughts all night. Matthew, alerted by one of the factory guards, emerged from the workshop, wiping his hands on a rag. He greeted Charles with a firm handshake. "Charles," Matthew said warmly, "you're up early. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Charles wasted no time. "Amber has told me about your flying machine. I'm here to see it for myself. Is it ready for another demonstration?" Matthew smiled but raised a hand. "It's not quite that simple, Charles. The flyer needs to be refueled and we'll need to run some checks before it's safe for another flight. That will take some time." Charles waved off the concern. "I'll wait. I'm not leaving here without seeing this thing in action." Matthew nodded, appreciating the man's determination. "Fair enough. Let's head to the airfield while the team prepares everything." At the airfield, the flyer stood proudly in the center, its sleek design a testament to Matthew's ingenuity. Charles circled the aircraft, inspecting every detail: the polished radial engine, the sturdy yet lightweight wings, and the carefully crafted propeller. "This is extraordinary," Charles muttered, almost to himself. "You've created something that looks both elegant and powerful." Matthew joined him, gesturing toward the engine. It's not just about appearances, Charles. Every element of this machine has been designed with purpose. The radial engine provides reliable thrust, the wings generate lift with minimal drag, and the lightweight frame ensures it's agile in the air. As the ground crew began refueling the flyer, Matthew explained the process. We use a specially refined fuel mixture to maximize efficiency. It's not as dense as what we use in automobiles, but it burns cleaner and delivers consistent power. Charles watched as the crew worked methodically, his curiosity growing. How long before it's ready? About an hour, Matthew replied. We'll need to check the engine and control surfaces after refueling to make sure everything is in top condition. They'll wait, Charles said firmly, crossing his arms. This is worth every second. An hour later, the flyer was ready. The ground crew signaled to Matthew that all systems were clear. He climbed into the cockpit, adjusting his goggles and giving the crew a thumbs up. The propeller was cranked and the engine roared to life, its sound cutting through the crisp morning air. Charles stood with Amber at the edge of the field, his eyes fixed on the flyer as it began to roll forward. The aircraft picked up speed, the propeller spinning into a blur, until finally the wheels lifted off the ground. The flyer ascended gracefully, carving through the sky with an ease that seemed almost unreal. It's incredible, Charles said, his voice barely above a whisper. I never thought I'd see something like this in my lifetime. Amber beamed, her father's matching her own from the day before. Matthew makes the impossible possible, doesn't he? The flyer banked left, then right, demonstrating its maneuverability. Matthew brought it into a gentle climb before leveling off, circling the airfield with precision. After several minutes, he began his descent, the aircraft touching down smoothly and rolling to a stop in front of the waiting crowd. Matthew climbed out of the cockpit, his face flushed with exhilaration. He approached Charles, who was still staring at the flyer, his expression a mixture of disbelief and excitement. Well? Matthew asked, a slight grin on his face. What do you think? Charles turned to him, his eyes wide. You've done it, Matthew. You've created something that will change the world. Tell Mato you plan to sell these machines? Yes, Matthew replied confidently, but not just one design. Just like with automobiles, I plan to develop different types of aircraft for different purposes: commercial transport, military applications, and specialized uses like aerial surveying. Charles nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. The potential is staggering. If you need funding or connections, I'll back you fully, whatever it takes to make this vision a reality. Matthew smiled, appreciating the offer. Thank you, Charles, but truthfully, I don't need a significant investment. Hesh Motors is generating more than enough revenue to fund this project. That said, I'd like to offer you something else. Charles raised an eyebrow in listening. For the sake of partnership and the value your experience and connections bring, I'm willing to offer you a 10% stake in the aviation division of Hesh Industries, Matthew said. It's not about the money, it's about having someone I trust involved in this venture. Charles extended his hand without hesitation. You've got a deal, Matthew. 10% it is, and I'll do everything in my power to help you succeed. Matthew shook his hand firmly. Then let's get to work. The sky isn't just the limit, it's the next frontier. As they walked back toward the workshop, discussing plans for scaling production and reaching international markets, Amber followed, a satisfied smile on her face. She knew that between Matthew's genius and her father's business acumen, the future of aviation was in very capable hands. Back in Matthew's office at the Hesh factory, a formal agreement was being drawn up. The desk was cleared of clutter, replaced by a fresh sheet of parchment and pen. Charles Fitzwilliam sat across from Matthew, and Matthew began. I've outlined the terms of our partnership here, 10% of the aviation division's equity in exchange for your involvement and connections. Charles leaned forward, scanning the document. It's a fair agreement, Matthew. You've already achieved so much on your own, but with a venture like this, partnerships are essential. This will ensure both the stability and growth of the division. Matthew nodded. Exactly. I want this to remain a collaborative effort, one that balances innovation with strategic expansion. Your name carries weight, Charles. Having you as a partner will open doors that might otherwise take years to access. Matthew handed the pen to Charles. Shall we make it official? Without hesitation, Charles took the pen and signed the document. Chapter 74. Matthew sat at his desk, absently tapping his pen against a stack of documents as he reflected on the events of the past few days. The aviation division was officially underway with Charles Fitzwilliam as a strategic partner, and the flyer's successful demonstration had cemented the project's viability. Yet, amidst the progress, one thing stood out in his mind: Amber's role. Amber had been present at every critical moment, offering insights, handling logistics, and acting as a bridge between Matthew's ambitious ideas and the practical execution required to make them a reality. But there was one glaring inconsistency. She wasn't officially part of Hesh Industries. Matthew looked up from his desk to see Amber standing by the window. Her gaze fixed on the airfield where the flyer rested. She seemed lost in thought, her fingers idly tracing the edge of her scarf. He leaned back in his chair, his decision already made. "Amber," he called, his tone thoughtful but resolute. She turned to face him, raising an eyebrow. "Yes. Can we talk for a moment?" "Sit down." Matthew gestured to the chair across from him. Amber moved to the seat, curiosity written on her face. "What's on your mind?" Matthew rested his elbows on the desk and folded his hands. "You've been deeply involved in almost every aspect of what we're building here, more than most people on the payroll. In fact, yet, you're not officially part of the company. Why is that?" Amber blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting the question. "I suppose I never thought about it that way. I'm not an employee because, well, I've never needed to be. My father's estate has always provided more than enough for me." Matthew tilted his head, studying her. "Then why do you spend so much time here? You could live a life of leisure. Yet you're here every day, working alongside my team." Amber smiled softly, her gaze momentarily dropping to the desk. "Because this being part of something this meaningful, the only place I feel alive. Sitting in the estate, surrounded by comfort and idleness, makes me feel useless. Here, I feel like I'm contributing to something greater than myself." Her words struck a chord with Matthew, and he nodded. "I understand that. But if you're going to keep contributing, we need to make it official. How do you feel about becoming part of Hesh Industries?" Amber's eyes widened slightly. "You mean work for you? As an actual employee?" "Exactly," Matthew said. "You're already doing the work, Amber. It's only fair you get the recognition and responsibility that comes with an official role." Amber's lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "I'll admit, I've never considered myself the type to work a formal job, but it makes sense, doesn't it? I'm already here. I'm already involved." "Then let's talk about what role suits you best," Matthew said, leaning forward. "What are your strengths? What do you enjoy doing?" Amber didn't hesitate. "I'm good at organizing, keeping things in order and managing paperwork. I've done that for my father's estate for years, coordinating correspondence, maintaining schedules, handling documents. It's what I know best." Matthew nodded, a smile forming. "Then it sounds like you'd be perfect as a secretary. You'd be at the heart of the operation, managing schedules, keeping records, and ensuring the flow of information runs smoothly." Amber's smile brightened. "I think I'd enjoy that. It's a role where I can contribute meaningfully without stepping outside what I'm already familiar with." "Perfect," Matthew said, reaching for a blank sheet of parchment. He began drafting a simple yet formal employment contract. As he wrote, Amber watched him intently, her anticipation growing. The contract outlined her role and responsibilities: managing documents, coordinating meetings, overseeing correspondence, and acting as a liaison between departments when necessary. It was clear and concise, leaving no room for ambiguity. Once he finished, Matthew slid the parchment across the desk and handed her a pen. "Erase the official offer. Take a look, and if it meets your expectations, well, make it official." Amber picked up the parchment, her brow furrowing slightly as she read. After a moment, she looked up, her expression a mix of excitement and determination. "This is more than fair, Matthew. I'm ready to sign." She placed the parchment on the desk, signed her name with a flourish, and passed it back to Matthew. He added his signature beneath hers, sealing the agreement. "Read chapters at Novelbin." Calm Matthew extended his hand, a warm smile on his face. "Welcome to Hesh Industries, Amber." Amber shook his hand firmly, her grin matching his. "Thank you, Matthew. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Matthew said, releasing her hand. "Now, let's get you settled into your new role." Amber stood, her excitement palpable. "What's first on the agenda, boss?" Matthew chuckled at her enthusiasm. "First, let's organize this chaos," he said, gesturing to the cluttered desk. "From now on, I'll need you to help me keep track of all the moving parts: aviation, automobiles, and everything in between." Amber rolled up her sleeves, her smile turning playful. "Consider it done. Let's get to work." Over the next hour, The two of them tackled the mess of papers, creating a streamlined system for managing projects, schedules, and correspondence. As they worked, Matthew couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and excitement, with Amber officially on the team. He knew the company was in even better hands. By the time they finished, the desk was immaculate, and Amber had already begun drafting an updated schedule for the coming weeks. She glanced up at Matthew, her expression a mix of pride and determination. "How's that for a first day?" "Impressive," Matthew admitted. "You're already making a difference." Amber laughed. "Well, I'm glad to be here. Let's make history together." Matthew nodded, his gaze drifting to the window, where the flyer stood in the distance. "We will, Amber. This is just the beginning." The two of them shared a moment of quiet camaraderie, the weight of their shared ambition hanging in the air. Together, they were ready to take Hesh Industries and the world into the future. Chapter 75. By the spring of 1885, the airfield near the Hesh factory buzzed with anticipation as Matthew Hesh and his team unveiled their latest creations. The success of the flyer had ignited a fire within the aviation division, driving them to design and build a series of aircraft tailored to different needs. Matthew's vision for the future of aviation extended beyond experimentation, sought to establish a thriving industry that mirrored the growth of his automobile empire. Matthew stood in the hangar. With Amber, Lionel, and a group of engineers, before them were 3 new aircraft, each representing a distinct purpose and an evolution of their initial designs. The polished metal frames gleamed under the sunlight streaming through the hangar doors. "Ladies and gentlemen," Matthew began, his voice filled with pride, "what you see before you are the first of their kind aircraft designed not just to fly but to serve specific purposes. These machines represent the future of transportation, commerce, and exploration. Continue your saga on Novelbin." Calm Amber gestured toward the first aircraft, her curiosity evident. "What's this one called?" Matthew stepped forward, placing a hand on the nose of the sleek, silver plane. "This is the Hesh 10 Skyliner. It's our first commercial passenger aircraft. The design is inspired by designs akin to the Douglas DC-3 from his previous world. It was a twin-engine monoplane with a streamlined fuselage and smooth, tapering wings. Its design was revolutionary for the time, capable of carrying 21 passengers in a pressurized cabin, an unheard-of luxury." Lionel, the head engineer, chimed in. "The Skyliner is powered by 2 radial engines, each producing 1,000 horsepower. It has a cruising speed of 190 miles per hour and a range of 1,500 miles. It's designed to connect major cities, reducing travel time from days to mere hours." Amber ran her hand along the fuselage, marveling at the craftsmanship. "And the cabin? What's it like inside?" Matthew led them to the passenger door, where he opened it to reveal the interior. Rows of plush seats lined the cabin, each with a window offering passengers a view of the sky. Overhead compartments provided space for luggage, and the polished wood paneling added an air of sophistication. "It's designed for comfort," Matthew explained. "Passengers will have reclining seats, in-flight meals, and even a lavatory. This isn't just a way to get from point A to point B, it's an experience." Amber smiled. "It's incredible. I can already imagine businessmen and travelers lining up to book flights." Lionel pointed to the second aircraft. "A more compact and rugged design, and this one, Matthew?" "This," Matthew said, walking toward the aircraft, "is the Hesh 20 Courier. It's designed for cargo transport. The Courier is inspired by the Junkers Ju-52. It was a Trimito aircraft with a corrugated metal exterior, giving it a sturdy and utilitarian appearance. Its cargo bay was spacious enough to carry up to 2,500 pounds of goods, making it ideal for shipping and logistics. This aircraft is all about efficiency," Matthew continued. "It can operate on short runways and handle rough conditions, making it perfect for remote areas and rapid deliveries. The 3 engines ensure reliability even in the event of a failure." Amber nodded, impressed. "This will revolutionize trade. Goods can be delivered across continents faster than ever before." Matthew's gaze shifted to the third aircraft, a sleek, low-wing monoplane painted in military gray, and finally, we have the Hesh 30 Falcon, a military reconnaissance and light attack aircraft. The Falcon was a single-engine plane with a streamlined design, reminiscent of the Supermarine Spitfire. It featured a bubble canopy for improved visibility and was armed with light machine guns mounted in the wings. This aircraft is built for speed and agility, Matthews said, with a top speed of 330 miles per hour and a range of 800 miles. It can gather intelligence, support ground forces, or defend key positions. Lionel added, the Falcon's construction uses lightweight aluminum alloys for increased performance without compromising durability. Amber's expression turned serious. This one's for war, isn't it? Yes, it is, but it lacked one of the fundamentals, Matthew said. What fundamentals? Machine gun, Matthew replied. The existing machine guns, like the Maxim, are too bulky and heavy to be mounted on an aircraft effectively. They also generate too much heat, making them unsuitable for prolonged use in flight. If we're going to arm this plane, we need something lighter, more reliable, and specifically engineered for aerial combat. Lionel nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. That's going to require significant innovation, Matthew. We'll need to develop a new type of firearm entirely. Matthews smiled faintly, already ahead of the curve. Precisely, I've been studying the designs of rotary and recoil-operated systems. A lighter, belt-fed machine gun that uses an air-cooled barrel could be the solution. It would need to be compact enough to mount inside the wing or on a flexible pivot, giving the pilot control without compromising the plane's aerodynamics. Amber, standing beside the Falcon, looked intrigued. So, you're not just revolutionizing aviation, you're advancing weaponry as well. It's a necessary step, Matthew admitted. We already have introduced the automobile, next is aircraft. Those two machines will revolutionize warfare as well. You can see it happening when a general visited us about the automobile. His team were silent for a moment. Gentlemen, I think this is also the time that we are expanding to weapon industry. Matthew let his words hang in the air for a moment, gauging the reactions of his team. Lionel was the first to break the silence, nodding thoughtfully. Expanding into weaponry is a logical step. Given the military applications of both automobiles and aircraft, it's not just about combat, it's about giving our forces an edge in intelligence, logistics, and strategy. And it is also a profitable market. Militaries are known to invest heavily in advancements that can provide them with a strategic edge, Lionel added, his tone practical. If we can offer them reliable, innovative solutions, we'll have a steady stream of revenue to fund our other ventures. Exactly, so let's make this work, Matthew said. Chapter 76. The warm sunlight of spring in 1885 filtered through the windows of Matthew's automobile as it rolled through the bustling streets of New Hudson, the industrial heart of the great Republic of Amarathia. Factories loomed on either side of the streets, their chimneys puffing smoke into the clear blue sky, but one factory in particular stood out to Matthew, a struggling gun manufacturer called Armitage Arms. As the automobile pulled to a stop in front of the building, Matthew adjusted his coat and stepped out. The factory showed signs of wear and financial strain. Its brick walls were stained with soot, and the sign bearing the company's name was faded and crooked. Yet, despite its outward appearance, Matthew saw potential. The infrastructure was already in place, and the workers inside possessed the knowledge and skill he needed to revolutionize weaponry. Here we are, Matthew muttered to himself. Striding toward the entrance, Amber had accompanied him, as usual, clipboard in hand. Do you really think this place is worth saving? Amber asked skeptically, eyeing the crumbling facade. It's not about saving it, Matthew replied. It's about transforming it. This place has everything we need to fast-track our entry into the weapon industry. Building from scratch would take months and millions more florins. Amber nodded, jotting down notes as they stepped inside. The factory's interior was dimly lit, the air filled with the metallic tang of grease and machinery. Workers moved sluggishly, their expressions weary. Machines clattered noisily in the background, producing rifles and pistols that seemed outdated even by the standards of the time. A foreman approached, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag. Mr. Hesh, welcome to Armitage Arms. Mr. Armitage is waiting for you in his office. Matthew followed the foreman through the factory floor, his keen eyes scanning the equipment and processes. He noted the worn tools, the haphazard organization, and the lack of innovation in the designs being produced. This place has seen better days. Amber whispered. It has, Matthew agreed, but that's what makes it a bargain. The foundation is solid. What it needs is leadership and vision. They reached the office, a modest room with wooden furniture and shelves lined with documents. Behind the desk sat Edwin Armitage, a man in his 50s with graying hair and a worn suit that reflected the state of his company. He stood as they entered, offering a tired but polite smile. Mr. Hesh, it's an honor to meet you, Armitage said, extending his hand. Matthew shook it firmly. Mr. Armitage, thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Not at all, Armitage replied, gesturing for them to sit. I admit, I was surprised to hear you were interested in my company. We're not exactly thriving, as I'm sure you've noticed. Matthew leaned back in his chair, his tone direct but not unkind. That's precisely why I'm here. I see potential in Armitage Arms, but it's clear you're struggling to compete in today's market. I'd like to offer you a way out, a deal that benefits both of us. Armitage's expression shifted, equal parts curiosity and hope. Go on. Matthew reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder containing a draft contract. I'm prepared to purchase your company, including its assets, infrastructure, and intellectual property, for 2 million florins. That's a generous offer, considering your current financial state. Armitage's eyes widened slightly and he leaned forward. That's a substantial amount, but why? What's your plan for this place? Due to the nature of my business, I can't tell you, but what I can tell you, Mr. Armitage, is this. Armitage Arms has untapped potential. Your facilities, your workforce, and your legacy, these are the building blocks for something far greater. I plan to transform this company into a cornerstone of innovation in the weapons industry. Armitage studied him for a moment, his fingers steepled as he processed the offer. You speak of transformation, but it'll need more assurance than just promises. What exactly will happen to my workforce? And my role in this new venture? Matthew met his gaze without hesitation. Your workers will not only keep their jobs but will also receive training in modern techniques. I intend to invest in state-of-the-art machinery and processes, ensuring they work in an environment that fosters productivity and innovation. As for your role, I'd like you to remain as head of operations. Your experience and leadership will be invaluable as we transition. Armitage frowned slightly, weighing his options. I'll admit, the offer is tempting, but I've run this business for over 2 decades. It's not easy to hand it over, even if the future looks uncertain. You have run the business for 2 decades, and yet it performed poorly. I am not judging your capability, you just need guidance, Matthew said, his tone firm but not unkind. He leaned forward slightly, meeting Armitage's gaze. The problem isn't your dedication, Mr. Armitage, it's that the industry has evolved and you haven't had the resources or strategy to keep pace. Armitage exhaled deeply, leaning back in his chair, his fingers drummed against the desk, a gesture that spoke of his internal conflict. I won't deny that you're right, times have been hard and we've struggled to keep up with the larger manufacturers. But this business has been my life's work, handing it over feels final. Matthew's expression softened. It doesn't have to be the end, in fact, it can be a new beginning for you, your workers, and the legacy of Armitage Arms. I don't want to dismantle what you've built, I want to refine it, expand it, and ensure it thrives in the future. Armitage looked down at the contract before him, his eyes scanning the terms again. You're offering 2 million florins, along with the opportunity for me to stay on as head of operations? Correct, Matthew confirmed. You'll have a crucial role in overseeing the transition and ensuring the workforce adapts to the changes we implement. Your experience is invaluable, but under my guidance, we'll bring innovation and efficiency to this factory. Continue reading at Novelbin. Amber, who had been quietly observing, interjected, and with Hesh Industries backing this operation, the workers will have job security, better training, and access to state-of-the-art equipment. Very well, I'll agree with your proposal, Armitage decided. Matthew smiled. Chapter 77. In his office at the Hesh factory, Matthew Hesh sat at his drafting table, deep in thought. The acquisition of Armitage Arms was finalized and the possibilities now stretched out before him like an open canvas. His goal was clear: to revolutionize the weaponry of the Great Republic of Amarathia by introducing modern designs far ahead of their time. With a ruler, compass, and pencil in hand, Matthew began to sketch the blueprint for his first projectile bolt-action rifle. He leaned over the table, the lamp's yellow glow illuminating his precise movements. On the paper, the outline of a long, sleek firearm began to take shape, inspired by the Mauser Gur 98 from his previous world. This will be the standard issue for any modern military, he muttered to himself, his pencil gliding across the page, a weapon that's reliable, accurate, and easy to produce. Amber entered the room quietly, a tray of tea in her hands. She placed it on the desk nearby and peered over his shoulder. What are you working on now? A bolt-action rifle, Matthew replied, not looking up. It's the cornerstone of any well-equipped military. This one will have a 5-round internal magazine, a smooth bolt mechanism, and a robust wooden stock. Amber nodded, intrigued. How will it compare to what's currently in use? Faster reload times, better range, and unmatched durability, Matthew said, marking measurements along the barrel. It'll fire a 7.92mm round, effective up to 500 yards, perfect for infantry use. As he worked, the rifle's components became clear: a long barrel for precision, a rear sight for accuracy, and a bolt system that was both simple and efficient. The design was practical, meant for mass production without sacrificing quality. Once the rifle's blueprint was complete, Matthew set it aside and began on his next design, a machine gun. This would be inspired by the Browning M1919, a belt-fed, air-cooled weapon capable of sustained fire. Amber watched as he drew a rectangular receiver and added a barrel jacket for cooling. That looks intimidating, she said. It's meant to be, Matthew replied. This machine gun will redefine how battles are fought, mounted on tripods, vehicles, or even aircraft. It will provide unmatched firepower. The belt-fed mechanism will allow it to sustain fire without frequent reloading. And the air-cooled barrel means it won't overheat as quickly. He detailed the internal workings, a recoil-operated firing system and a quick-change barrel mechanism. This will fire .30 caliber rounds, Matthew continued, at a rate of 400 to 600 rounds per minute, perfect for defensive positions and suppressing enemy advances. Amber raised an eyebrow. And how do you plan to produce something so intricate? Armitage Arms has the machinery and skilled workers, Matthew said confidently. With a few upgrades, they'll be able to handle this. It's just a matter of introducing them to the designs and ensuring they're trained properly. Next, Matthew moved on to his third project, a semi-automatic pistol, modeled after the Colt M1911. He began sketching a compact, ergonomic frame with a short barrel and a magazine housed within the grip. This will be the sidearm of choice for officers and cavalry, he explained. A semi-automatic pistol that's reliable, easy to carry, and simple to use. Amber looked at the drawing, impressed by its sleek design. And how many rounds will it hold? 7. Matthew said. ITLL fire .45 caliber rounds, packing a lot of power into a small package. It's designed for close combat and personal defense. The pistol's design emphasized simplicity and functionality. The hammer, safety switch, and slide action were all carefully planned for ease of use. Matthew imagined soldiers and officers relying on this weapon in the heat of battle, confident in its performance. As the hours passed, his desk became cluttered with blueprints, each representing a new step forward in the evolution of weaponry. Amber brought over a fresh cup of tea, noticing the intensity in Matthew's eyes. Do you ever stop to rest? She asked. Half-teasing, Matthew smiled faintly, rubbing his temples. I'll rest when the job's done. Right now, we're laying the foundation for something that will shape the future of warfare. At times, I would think how you could come up with these inventions, and they are always ahead of their time. Could it be that you, Amber said with a tone tinged with suspicion. Matthew paused mid-sketch, his pencil hovering above the blueprint of the semi-automatic pistol. He glanced at Amber. Could it be that I what? He asked, his tone calm but probing. Amber hesitated, then set down the tray and folded her arms, her eyes searching his. You always seem to be one step ahead. Your ideas, your design style are unlike anything anyone has ever seen. It's almost as if you've seen the future. Matthew leaned back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips. That's an interesting thought, Amber, but innovation often feels like a leap into the future, doesn't it? It's about imagining what could be, rather than settling for what is. Amber studied him carefully, her fingers tapping lightly on the edge of the desk. You're avoiding the question, Matthew. No one else is thinking about air-cooled machine guns or semi-automatic pistols. Even the Skyline ran aircraft with a pressurized cabin feels decades ahead of its time. You didn't just stumble upon these ideas. Matthew held her gaze, debating how much to reveal. He respected Amber's intelligence and loyalty, but the truth about his origins was something he'd never intended to share. Amber, he began slowly, what you're seeing is the result of years of study, observation, and a willingness to push boundaries. I've spent countless hours dissecting what works, what doesn't, and how to improve it. It's not magic or prophecy, it's hard work and vision. Amber frowned slightly but didn't press further. Instead, she picked up one of the blueprints, her tone softening. I'm not accusing you of anything sinister, Matthew, but you have to admit, your ideas feel like they're from another world. Another world, perhaps, or maybe I'm just better at connecting the dots than most. Either way, the important thing is that these ideas will help people protect them, empower them, and bring about a better future. Read the latest on Novelbin. Calm. Amber nodded, setting the blueprint back on the desk. I can't argue with that. You've already changed so much, and I have no doubt you'll keep changing the world. Good. Then let's focus on what's ahead. Tomorrow, I'll present these designs to the engineers at Armitage Arms. The sooner we start production, the sooner we can make an impact. Chapter 78. Your next chapter awaits on Novelbin. The early morning light bathed the roads of New Hudson in a soft golden glow as Matthew Hesh and Robert Anders sped through the bustling streets in an open-top automobile. The vehicle, a prototype Jeep designed by Hesh Motors, was a rugged, utilitarian variant of their commercial line, built specifically for off-road and military purposes. Its sturdy frame and oversized wheels handled the uneven cobblestones with ease, drawing curious looks from pedestrians and workers alike. In the back of the Jeep, a reinforced steel crate was securely fastened, its contents protected by a heavy-duty lock. Inside were the prototypes that Matthew and his team had poured weeks of effort into: the bolt-action rifle, the belt-fed machine gun, and the semi-automatic pistol. Today, they were en route to the United Army Command Headquarters to present these designs to General Nathaniel Warner. Robert, seated beside Matthew, clutched a clipboard with notes detailing the specifications of the weapons. He glanced at the passing scenery, his unease evident. "Do you think the general will be open to this?" Robert asked, breaking the silence. Matthew kept his eyes on the road, his expression calm and confident. "General Warner is a man who values results. If these weapons perform as intended, he'll see their potential. He's not the type to let tradition hold him back." The Jeep roared past horse-drawn carts and early-model automobiles. The city gradually gave way to the outskirts, where the imposing silhouette of the United Army Command Headquarters loomed on the horizon. The building was a fortress of stone and steel, its high walls and guard towers projecting authority and security. As they approached the main gate, armed guards stepped forward, their rifles slung over their shoulders. One of them raised a hand, signaling the Jeep to stop. "State your business," the guard barked, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the vehicle and its occupants. Matthew leaned out of the driver's seat, his tone even. "Matthew Hesh, here to see General Nathaniel Warner. We have an appointment." The guard's eyes flicked to the crate in the back of the Jeep before nodding. "Wait here." He motioned to a subordinate who hurried inside the gatehouse. A few moments later, the gate creaked open and the guard waved them through. "Proceed, the general is expecting you. Park near the West Wing." Matthew drove the Jeep into the compound, its tires crunching over the gravel. Soldiers moved about the grounds as they performed their respective tasks inside the compound. Rows of neatly aligned barracks and armories framed the main building, where a large courtyard served as a parade ground. Parking the Jeep near the West Wing, Matthew and Robert climbed out. Two soldiers approached to assist with the crate, their curious glances lingering on the sleek automobile. "This your ride?" one of the soldiers asked, a note of admiration in his voice. "It is," Matthew replied, locking the Jeep's doors. "A prototype, but we're here for what's in the crate, not the car." The soldiers chuckled and hefted the crate between them, following Matthew and Robert into the building. Inside, the halls were stark and functional, with maps and military insignias adorning the walls. They were led to a spacious meeting room, where General Nathaniel Warner stood by a large window overlooking the compound. The general turned as they entered, his piercing blue eyes locking onto Matthew. Clad in a crisp uniform, his tall frame and commanding presence radiated authority. "Mr. Hesh," Warner greeted, extending a hand. "It's good to see you again, and you must be Mr. Anders," he added, nodding to Robert. "General Warner," Matthew replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you for meeting with us." The soldiers set the crate on a heavy oak table at the center of the room and stepped back. Warner gestured for Matthew to proceed. "I understand you've brought something new for me to see," the general said, his tone neutral but expectant. Matthew nodded. "We have, General. These prototypes represent the next generation of weaponry tools designed to give our forces a decisive edge on the battlefield." He unlocked the crate and lifted the lid, revealing the gleaming weapons within. The bolt-action rifle, machine gun, and semi-automatic pistol lay neatly arranged, their polished metal surfaces catching the light. "This," Matthew began, lifting the rifle, "is the Hesh Model 85 bolt-action rifle. It features a 5-round internal magazine, a smooth bolt mechanism, and a range of up to 500 yards. It's lightweight, durable, and designed for precision." Warner took the rifle, testing its weight and balance. He cycled the bolt and inspected the sights, nodding slightly. "Feels solid. What's next?" Matthew set the rifle down and picked up the machine gun, the Hesh Model 85 automatic gun, belt-fed, air-cooled, and capable of firing 400 to 600 rounds per minute. It's versatile enough to be mounted on vehicles or used on a tripod. The general's eyebrows lifted slightly as he ran his hands over the machine gun's cooling barrel. "Interesting. How does it handle heat during sustained fire?" We've incorporated an air-cooled system and a quick-change barrel mechanism, Robert interjected. It can sustain prolonged fire without compromising performance. Warner nodded, setting the machine gun back in the crate. And the pistol? Matthew presented the compact semi-automatic pistol, the Hesh Model 85 pistol, chambered for .45 caliber rounds. It holds 7 in the magazine, reliable, easy to carry, and perfect for close combat. Warner examined the pistol, testing its grip and sight alignment. I'll admit, Mr. Hesh, these designs are impressive, but prototypes alone won't convince the Army Board. We'll need a live demonstration. That's precisely why we're here, General, Matthew said. We're prepared to conduct a field trial at your earliest convenience. Warner smiled faintly, confident as always. Very well, I'll arrange for a demonstration today in the afternoon. I'll also send invitations to my fellow generals as well. It's going to be a huge demonstration. Are you prepared for it? When did I ever not prepare for anything, General? Matthew winked. I will ace this demonstration with my invention. Chapter 79. The afternoon sun hung high over the proving grounds, casting sharp shadows across the vast open field. Rows of officers, soldiers, and a few invited officials from the Army Board stood behind a cordoned-off area, their eyes trained on the setup ahead. The stage was set for Matthew Hesh's demonstration to determine whether his groundbreaking designs would earn the favor of the military elite. Matthew stood at the edge of the proving grounds, his hands behind his back, exuding calm confidence. Beside him, Robert Anders reviewed a checklist on his clipboard, ensuring every detail was accounted for. Behind them, soldiers busily prepared the weapons and targets for the live demonstration. General Nathaniel Warner arrived, accompanied by several high-ranking generals and influential figures from the United Army. Their crisp uniforms and serious expressions underscored the gravity of the event. Warner approached Matthew, giving a firm nod. Mr. Hesh, everyone is here and ready. This is your moment to prove the value of your designs. Impress them, Warner said, his voice low but commanding. Matthew smiled, tipping his head respectfully. I plan to do just that, General. Warner stepped back to join the other observers, and Matthew turned to Robert. Let's start with the rifle demonstration. Everything set? Robert gave a sharp nod. Targets are at 100, 300, and 500 yards. The rifle is loaded and ready. Matthew walked to the center of the field, where a table was set with the Hesh Model 85 bolt-action rifle. A young soldier stood ready beside it, his stance rigid as he awaited orders. Matthew raised his voice to address the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hesh Model 85 bolt-action rifle, designed for accuracy, reliability, and ease of use. It features a 5-round internal magazine and can hit targets with precision at up to 500 yards. He turned to the soldier. Sergeant, demonstrate. The soldier saluted sharply, picked up the rifle, and took position. At Matthew's signal, the targets were revealed, metal plates painted bright red, each marked with its respective distance. The sergeant took aim at the closest target, squeezing the trigger. A sharp crack echoed across the field, and the plate flipped backward from the impact. Without hesitation, the sergeant worked the bolt, chambering the next round. He adjusted his aim for the 300-yard target and fired again, hitting the plate dead center. The crowd murmured appreciatively. For the final shot, the sergeant took a deep breath, steadied himself, and fired at the 500-yard target. The bullet struck with a resounding clang, and the crowd broke into scattered applause. Matthew stepped forward as the sergeant lowered the rifle. This rifle is designed to perform consistently in the hands of every soldier, ensuring they can rely on it in the heat of battle. Its durability, precision, and ease of use make it a worthy addition to any infantryman's arsenal. General Warner exchanged a look with one of his colleagues, who nodded in approval. Impressive, Warner said, but let's see what your automatic gun can do. Matthew moved to the next station, where the Hesh Model 85 automatic gun was mounted on a tripod. Soldiers had set up a row of moving targets to simulate advancing infantry, along with a few stationary obstacles representing defensive positions. This, Matthew began, gesturing to the belt-fed weapon, is the Hesh Model 85 automatic gun, designed for sustained fire. It features an air-cooled barrel and a quick-change mechanism capable of firing 400 to 600 rounds per minute. This weapon can dominate defensive positions or provide suppressive fire during an assault. He turned to another soldier. Private, show them. The private nodded, grasping the weapon's handles with a steady grip. With a pull of the trigger, the automatic gun roared to life, unleashing a relentless stream of bullets. The belt-fed mechanism hummed smoothly, and the targets were shredded one by one. The soldiers observing from the sidelines exchanged murmurs of excitement, visibly impressed by the weapon's power and reliability. As the firing ceased, the private quickly disengaged the barrel and replaced it with a spare, demonstrating the quick-change mechanism. Within seconds, the gun was ready to fire again. Matthew turned to the crowd. The Hesh Model 85 automatic gun offers unmatched versatility, whether mounted on vehicles, aircraft, or used in fixed defensive positions. It provides continuous firepower without the risk of overheating. Warner's eyes gleamed with interest as he conferred quietly with a fellow general. The murmurs among the officers were growing louder, their approval evident. For the final demonstration, Matthew approached the table holding the Hesh Model 85 pistol. A compact, sleek firearm, it stood out for its simplicity and practicality. Enjoy news stories from Novelbin. This is the Hesh Model 85 pistol, Matthew announced, designed for officers and close-quarters combat. It combines reliability with ease of use. With a 7-round magazine and a .45 caliber chamber, it's a powerful sidearm that can be drawn quickly in critical moments. A soldier stepped forward to demonstrate, firing at a series of targets placed at varying distances. Each shot landed with precision, showcasing the pistol's accuracy and power. The quick reload mechanism was highlighted as the soldier smoothly ejected the empty magazine and replaced it with a fresh one, firing again within seconds. Matthew faced the crowd, his voice confident. This pistol is not just a weapon. It's a tool of survival for those in command positions. Its compact design and efficiency make it an essential companion in the field. As the demonstration concluded, General Warner and the other officers gathered around Matthew. Warner's expression was one of satisfaction mixed with curiosity. "Mr. Hesh," Warner began, "you've shown us weapons that are not only innovative but also practical for the modern battlefield. The Army Board will need to deliberate, but I can already tell you've made a strong case." Matthew extended a hand, which Warner shook firmly. "Thank you, General. These weapons are just the beginning. With the right support, we can revolutionize how the United Army operates." Warner nodded, turning to the other officers. "Gentlemen, I believe we've seen enough for today. Prepare a report for the board. I'll ensure these designs are given the consideration they deserve." Chapter 80. The meeting room of the United Army Board was a stark, imposing chamber, its walls adorned with maps of the Great Republic of Amarathia and its surrounding territories. Military insignias and banners hung in strategic placements, lending the room an air of gravitas. Around a large mahogany table sat the most influential members of the Army Board, including General Nathaniel Warner, who had spearheaded the recent weapons demonstration. The discussion was already underway, with Lieutenant General Howard Grayson taking the floor, a grizzled veteran of numerous campaigns. Grayson exuded both experience and skepticism. "Continue reading on Novelbin." "Gentlemen," Grayson began, his tone clipped. "We have just witnessed a demonstration of weaponry that, on the surface, appears revolutionary, but I believe we must temper our excitement with caution. Innovations like these often carry hidden pitfalls." Colonel James Whitaker, a younger officer with a reputation for forward-thinking strategies, leaned forward in his seat. "General Grayson, with all due respect, the Hesh designs address several of our current shortcomings. The bolt-action rifle alone would standardize our infantry capabilities, ensuring accuracy and reliability in a way our current armaments cannot." Grayson waved a dismissive hand. "Standardization is meaningless if production costs spiral out of control. What good is an effective rifle if we can't afford to outfit every soldier with one? The Model 85 may perform admirably, but its practicality on a larger scale remains questionable." Across the table, Brigadier General Henry Caldwell adjusted his glasses and interjected, his tone measured. "Grayson raises a valid concern, but we must also consider the strategic advantage these weapons could offer. The automatic gun, for instance, has the potential to redefine battlefield tactics. Sustained suppressive fire would allow our infantry to maneuver with far greater efficiency." "At what cost?" Grayson snapped. "Do you have any idea how many resources it would take to manufacture and maintain a fleet of such complex weapons? The logistics alone could cripple our supply chains." Warner, who had remained silent up to this point, finally spoke, his deep voice commanding immediate attention. "Enough. This is precisely why we're here to weigh the costs against the benefits and reach a decision that serves the best interests of the United Army." He leaned forward, his piercing blue eyes scanning the room. "Let's break this down piece by piece. First, the bolt-action rifle, Colonel Whitaker. Your thoughts? Whitaker straightened in his chair, his voice steady. The Hesh Model 85 bolt-action rifle is a significant improvement over our current standard-issue rifles. Its internal magazine allows for faster reloads, and its accuracy at 500 yards would give our infantry a decisive edge in long-range engagements. I believe this weapon is not only feasible but necessary. Grayson frowned but said nothing, allowing Warner to turn his attention to Caldwell. Brigadier General Caldwell, your perspective? Caldwell nodded. I concur with Colonel Whitaker. The rifle's simplicity in design makes it ideal for mass production. Training soldiers to use it effectively would require minimal additional time, and its durability means fewer replacements over the long term. I see it as a worthwhile investment. Warner nodded thoughtfully before shifting gears. Now, the automatic gun, General Grayson. Since you seem particularly concerned, let's hear your analysis. Grayson took a deep breath, his tone more restrained but still firm. The Hesh Model 85 automatic gun is undoubtedly a powerful tool, but it also represents a logistical nightmare. Its rate of fire would necessitate a massive increase in ammunition production, not to mention the maintenance required for such a complex mechanism. I fear it would place too great a strain on our resources. Whitaker countered immediately, but consider what it could do on the battlefield, General. With proper deployment, this weapon could break enemy lines, secure defensive positions, and provide the kind of firepower we've never had before. The benefits far outweigh the logistical challenges. Caldwell chimed in, if we're concerned about resources, we could prioritize deployment to elite units first, those most likely to engage in critical operations. Over time, as production scales up, we can expand its availability. Grayson scoffed, and what happens when those elite units are overrun because their ammunition supplies run dry? Superior firepower means nothing without sustainability. Warner raised a hand, cutting off the brewing argument. We'll revisit this after discussing the final piece, the semi-automatic pistol, Colonel Whitaker. Whitaker gestured to the notes in front of him. The Hesh Model 85 pistol is a game-changer for officers and close combat situations. Its semi-automatic mechanism allows for quick follow-up shots, and its compact design makes it an ideal sidearm. I see no reason not to adopt it. Grayson shook his head. It's a luxury, not a necessity. Our officers have managed just fine with revolvers. Why fix what isn't broken? Caldwell sighed. It's not about fixing, it's about improving. The pistol's reliability and ease of use could save lives, and frankly, revolvers are becoming outdated. If we're serious about modernizing our forces, this is a logical step. Warner leaned back in his chair, his expression pensive. Gentlemen, it's clear we have a mix of opinions. Let me summarize what I've heard so far. He pointed to the rifle. There's strong support for the bolt-action rifle. Its advantages in accuracy, reliability, and production feasibility make it a clear choice for standard issue. He gestured to the automatic gun. The automatic gun is more divisive. While its potential on the battlefield is undeniable, the concerns about logistics and sustainability are valid. We may need to explore phased deployment or additional resources to address these issues. Finally, he addressed the pistol. As for the semi-automatic pistol, the arguments for modernization outweigh the resistance to change. It's a small step forward, but one that could have a significant impact in critical situations. Warner stood, his commanding presence silencing any further debate. Hey, race, what we'll do, I'll draft a proposal recommending the immediate adoption of the bolt-action rifle and the semi-automatic pistol for the automatic gun. They'll propose further testing and analysis, focusing on logistics and deployment strategies. He looked around the table, his gaze steady. This isn't just about weaponry, it's about the future of our military. We cannot afford to let complacency or fear of change hold us back. Are we in agreement? The room was silent for a moment before the officers began nodding one by one. Even Grayson, though clearly reluctant, gave a begrudging nod. Good, Warner said. I'll submit the proposal to the board tomorrow. Dismissed. As the officers filed out, Warner lingered by the table, his thoughts turning to the man who had brought these weapons to their attention. Matthew Hesh was an enigma, but there was no denying his brilliance. If these designs truly lived up to their promise, they could change the face of warfare and the destiny of the great Republic of Amarathia.